Something happens, like, in the moment that I climb the V17, it's effortless in that moment because it happened, like, it's just what happened in that instance. And every time that I try the climb and I don't do it, on that attempt, it's impossible because it didn't happen. And what my goal is, because I have this desire to do it as quickly as possible, like, that is a goal that I very much internalize when I show up to the boulder. I'm trying to achieve a desired outcome to get from point A to on top of the rock, like, ideally in, like, on the first go, and then if I don't do it on the first go, on the second go. My goal is to take friction out of that system, it's to not write any narratives in which I am, like, limiting myself from achieving that. That's what I'm doing, is I'm trying to just step outside of my own way.
What were things that you added to the narrative that hurt that process?
It's all the what ifs. What if I do this is a big thing. It's like,
Ooh, in the positive. That's interesting.
yeah, I feel like that gets in people's way so much. Like, that's something, like, in the last few weeks that I've been dealing with climbing. What if I do a V17 in 3 hours? That's a big what if, and that starts spiraling. That's like, how am I going to speak about this? What does that mean? All of these questions. The what if, like, in the positive, defines the what ifs in the negative. So as soon as you have the what if I do this, isn't that going to be so great? Then, just by the law of contrast, you have the what if I don't do this? Oh, that's going to be worse. There's all of those what ifs, positive, negative, all the same, because they define each other.
Hamish, welcome back to the pod, dude.
Thank you. How long has it been?
Damn, I should have looked up.
Yeah. It was the end of last year, right?
Yeah.
It's like October, something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Last year.
late 2024, and I knew it that closely because you were chilling after the Olympics. You were kind of a bit more relaxed, and I think you were still kind of processing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 6 months ago,
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot has happened, man.
Mm-hmm.
I I'm here with you in Denver, which is a trip because last time I talked to you, I was in Nevada, and you were all the way over in the UK at home.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just happened to be at Denver. Yeah, we happened to be in Denver at the same time, and we were just saying how I loved about climbing, man. Good to see you here in person. Good to see you on Zoom too, but this is better.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree. I mean, it's just so nice to, like, sit face to face with you, and I feel like it just makes speaking easier. There's less weirdness always.
Yeah, you're like, if you're gonna get together and go deep on something, shouldn't you get together in real life? I mean, look, the internet's great. I don't want to complain. It lets me talk to people from all over the world and get to hear their views. But something that I really love about climbing is this ability or these coincidences of traveling around the world and bumped into friends. I did in China one time. I went to Yangshuo and was like, "Oh, you're here." Uh, but I think why it's so important is that what it makes you feel like is that you can almost be at home anywhere. Like I'm sure you're staying with friends here. I'm sure you don't feel like I know you're traveling, but are you, or are you just kind of doing your thing?
Yeah, I mean, we have the van here, Quinn and I, so we, like, literally are at home wherever we go. Like, we bring our home with us. But the community side of things is incredible. Like, that's what I like most about being in the van, is that we can, like, fit into a community wherever we go, and, like, find our people and find our friends and be integrated in that, like, just fun, comfortable lifestyle kind of wherever we go. We don't need to pick and choose friend groups, because wherever you are, you're missing out on cool people.
Yeah, dude, that's home. Home is where the heart is right now, but home is where your friends are. Like
Yes.
I think that's funny how you're like you're totally missing out on something. I like that idea where there's something awesome going on somewhere else, but just you're right here. And actually, dude, I got a segue from that into something I was just watching your video on Mellow where you do "No One Mourns the Wicked" real quickly too. But the reason why it made me think of it is the caption says, hold on, I wrote it down. Your caption says, "You may not take this moment with you." And I was curious about that, man. Is that
Yeah.
related to what we're talking about?
I mean, it's related to everything. I think that is a phrase which has stuck with me for a while. I can't remember when it entered my head, but it's just a very thematic idea. It's like related to this in as much as it's related to anything. What that means to me is very simply that what you're experiencing right now, whether that's a conversation or an achievement, like you don't get to take that with you. There's nowhere for it to go other than exactly where it is. Like you can't carry the past into the future or into the present or any of that. Like once you've lived something, it's gone. Like it's forever gone. Um, the past is existing in the present. Nothing is chronological like I used to think it was. And what that means to me is that you just have to live completely in the moment. Whether you want to or not, whether you think you are or not, you're forever stuck in the present moment.
You know, it's kind of interesting about attaching that to a video where you had one of the bigger achievements probably in your career in climbing, whatever you want to say it. It's interesting because it doesn't mean that like climbing's done for you either, right? It's not like, oh, I checked this box. It's
Mm-hmm.
like that was that moment, and I assume that it was a good moment,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gone now. And
Mm-hmm.
so you're always kind of is that a good thing? You're always kind of looking for those moments. I guess it doesn't even matter if it's good or bad. It just is. Like that moment's gone, on to the next.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it. It's the non-attachment to what you're doing. Not in a like dissociative way necessarily, but just not needing to hold on so tightly to achievements or to traumas or to whatever it is. That's kind of what that means to me. Yeah, and in that climbing sense, it's that was something that happened, but if I define myself by something that has happened or I try to, it's just going to lead to a lot of unpleasant feelings and suffering because by just the nature of how things are, kind of irrefutably, in my opinion, you can't bring stuff with you.
So you've known about this quote for a while. Do you put it into practice, like even in those micro levels of right before you pull on, as you're stepping on the mats in a competition? Like it just seems like there's something there about just being present in that moment that also is connected with good performances.
Yeah, it's a lack of resistance. I think that's going to be a big theme in whatever we speak about today is uh not resisting what is. Because I don't like when I first kind of got into meditation and uh Buddhist teachings and spirituality and that kind of thing, I was quite young. Like my mom, first of all, was a yoga teacher and she does Zen meditation now, and my coach is very practiced in meditation, as far as I'm aware. We haven't spoken like at length about it recently, but he got everyone meditating from a young age. Um, but I always had the misconception that presence was a state that you were trying to achieve, as if like when you're just living your day-to-day life, you're not present. But now I see presence as something completely unavoidable. And all that I'm trying to do in these moments of letting go is accept the fact that presence is completely unavoidable. Like even if you're caught up in your hustle and bustle of working or I don't know what
Podcasting, something. Who
podcasting,
knows?
yeah. Um, and in those moments where you feel scattered and stressed and all over the place and you're thinking about the past, on some level, all of that is appearing in the present moment. Like it can all be viewed through that uh, lens. And all I'm trying to do at the moment is to accept that that's how things are and it's taking friction out of the system, which is allowing better flow and better. I mean, flow is a good word for it. It's an overused word, maybe, but it's still a good word for it. And just allowing things to unfold as they are going to unfold and getting out of your own way.
Something that I really wanted to ask you about is this connection between trying really hard and then letting go. And I this came to me recently where I was watching my daughter practice ballet. She's 5. It's very basic practice. But I'm watching her and she's seriously focused and trying hard. And I remember when I started gymnastics or climbing, it's something that I believe was really important where it's like, no, when you when you say grab that crimp or point your toe, I mean, really try to do it. But it almost seems like that has its limitations as well. And I don't quite understand what I think you know the direction I'm heading in, but I don't know if it's totally figured out. But like when you have these beautiful moments or performances and you let go, like how is that related to trying hard, or is there unlearning there? Just can we tap into some of that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the notion of difficulty and trying hard, like difficulty and ease, like that is a very basic concept. I think most people have an understanding of what it means for something to be difficult and what it means for something to be easy. And that's at the core of this question is what's difficult and what's easy. But realistically, like if you try it and define it, you kind of have no idea where those come from, like what it means for a climb to be difficult. Like that's a really, really complicated question. Like the difficulty, I think most people would understand isn't like inherent in the rock. Like the rock itself doesn't contain difficulty, and the person doesn't. It's like something in the relationship between the person and the rock,
Yeah.
which is the difficulty. Um, and there's also like there's just so many different ways of approaching this question. But I think what it generally boils down to is that difficulty and ease is a relationship. It's non-fundamental. Difficulty is an experience and not a fact about something. So you could, if you're getting chased by a bear, you could run for 10 minutes at full speed and it wouldn't be difficult in the way that if you had to run 10 minutes at full speed, like now, if I was like, just get out there, you'd find that difficult.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is just a really simple window into like how subjective difficulty and ease is. What you're actually trying to do in ballet or in climbing or in anything is to align a sense of ease with your desired outcome. Because you always take the easiest path. Like running at full speed away from the bear is the easiest thing you can do in that moment. Like standing still would be way more difficult. Whereas right now, like just sitting there is way easier than like running full pelt down the highway.
Yeah, it's just something that I like to poke on because I think we've all had these experiences where things feel easy and they are aligned with excellent performances. And then we've also, I mean, I think part of being an athlete is also trying hard. Sometimes that's in training. Sometimes I don't know. It's just I wish I could tap into those moments where things feel like, okay, you just said if you're running from a bear, you could run real fast because you're running for your life. And the idea of trying hard doesn't quite connect with just that
Hmm.
singular goal of getting away from the bear. And so I guess I'm wondering when you've had some of your best performances, are they always quote unquote easy? And is there something you tap into that allows you to just be there?
I think understanding first of all that difficulty is a concept that doesn't actually make that much sense when you look into it. Like you can see it through different lenses, like comfort and discomfort. Like that's kind of confused with difficulty and ease a lot. Or the way I view the world is that when something happens, like in the moment that I climb the V17, it's effortless in that moment because it happened. Like it's just what happened in that instance. And every time that I try the climb and I don't do it, on that attempt, it's impossible because it didn't happen. And what my goal is, because I have this desire to do it as quickly as possible, like that is a goal that I very much internalize when I show up to the boulder. I'm trying to achieve a desired outcome to get from point A to on top of the rock, like ideally in like on the first go, and then if I don't do it on the first go, on the second go. My goal is to take friction out of that system. Is it's to not write any narratives in which I am like limiting myself from achieving that. That's what I'm doing is I'm trying to just step outside of my own way.
Hmm. What are some of the things that you think, or what maybe it's best just for you specifically, in the past, what were things that you added to the narrative that hurt that process?
Well, it would be like it's all the what ifs. What if I do this is a big thing. It's like
Ooh, in the positive. That's interesting.
yeah. Yeah, that's feel like that gets in people's way so much. Like I that's something like in the last few weeks that I've been dealing with climbing. Like what if I do a V17 in 3 hours? Like that's a big what if, and that starts spiraling. That's like, how am I going to speak about this? What does that mean? All of these questions. The what if, like in the positive, defines the what ifs in the negative. So as soon as you have like the what if I do this, isn't that going to be so great? Then just by the law of contrast, you have the what if I don't do this? Oh, that's going to be worse. Like there's all of those what ifs, positive, negative, all the same, because they define each other. And it's thinking about the future, it's thinking about how you're going to have to act if this happens, how you're going to have to act if this different thing happens. Uh, and they just cause fluff in your head whilst you're on the wall. Like you see someone fumble a hold, like you're going for a move and you just don't quite grab it right. That's not because the sensory information isn't there or the coordination or the kinesthetics. It's not because that's not there. It's because there's some micro hesitation which is happening in that moment of trying to predict what's going to happen if you make this move and then you do the boulder, or if you don't make this move and you don't do the boulder. There are just so many moments like that on the climb where you can talk yourself out of doing it because you don't like the outcome, even if it's positive. You're scared of it in some way. You're scared of what that means, of not knowing who you are or how you're going to have to act in that moment. And that can just, you just see that when a foot slips, it's because you have fear of like the consequences of it slipping. Like we do so many things that are self-fulfilling prophecies. Like that's just happening constantly. You see that whenever you're watching someone climb and they just don't, they like tense up. You can see it if you've like uh been in the sport for long enough, I think. Like it's really easy to spot, but really hard to change.
That's an interesting idea where you said that if you see someone fumble something, like clearly your body is capable. Well, we could take you, for example, you did whatever, no one mourns, you did this climb. So your body is clearly capable. And so when mistakes enter the equation, when you're like, okay, I understand the beta, I just kind of need to execute,
Hmm.
it's it's something else other than your body and your abilities getting in the ways. Am I kind of saying that back to you correctly?
Yeah, that's correct.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And another way of looking at that, I can't remember the exact numbers, but like I saw a study recently on like the amount of sensory data that your like sensory organs take in compared to the amount of sensory data that your brain can process and convert into conscious experience. It's something like you get 1,000 times more sensory data, which you have access to, but you can't consciously experience. So that's like, yeah, it's just so much more depth and understanding and information which is available to you if and only if you don't try and make sense of it. I feel like that's a really good metaphor for what I'm trying to say, but not just a metaphor, like a quite concrete example, is you just have so much more available to you if and only if you don't try and make sense of it. Because trying to make sense of it means you're limiting yourself to 1,000 times lower resolution.
Consciousness is really narrow. Like what we can see and process. I always use this example where when you walk up to a door, you don't see a door, you see a handle because you're trying to get through the door.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see the paneling. You don't, maybe you probably don't even see the color.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tool for you to get from one place to the other. And so, yeah, what our awareness is, though, and what we're taking in is much vaster than just the door handle. But the thing is that your consciousness is there, right? You can't turn it off unless you know, pass out or whatever. And so let's say you're entering into one of these states where you're trying to get out of your body's way. Like, what is your consciousness doing then? Like, where do you focus it? Or yeah.
Yeah, well, the thing that I'm trying to do then is it's the self model that I'm trying to get out of the way because it's the self model, the thing that I call Hamish that I identify with. It's the part of consciousness that makes me feel like I am a person looking out at a world. Like that thing is still part of consciousness. Like it's not separate from anything else. It's an idea, it's a model that can be removed and can be overlooked and bypassed. And you do that by seeing it as the same as everything else. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to dissolve that self model for a moment. So there's no um, memory, there's no prediction of the future. There's just simple awareness in the moment of the sensations that I'm feeling. I'm essentially trying to have as much access and attention on the sensory data that's coming in to allow my body to process it and perform accordingly without needing to understand it. Because a self model is what does the understanding. Is going, okay, this input's happening. My hand has hit this hold, which means I'm gonna have to do this. And now my foot's here, which means I'm gonna have to do this. And if my foot slips, then I'm gonna fall off, and then I'm gonna have to wait half an hour, and that's gonna be frustrating because I just want to do the thing. It's all of those thoughts. It's finding a way to kind of undermine all of that and make that irrelevant. And then you just have the sensory data and you can just focus on that and become that. It's like an identification with the verb of what you're doing. It's identifying with climbing, not with someone who is doing the climbing.
That was perfect what you just said, because it reminded me of a class I was taking, a philosophy class, and the professor was talking about Sartre, and he was talking about how we often play the role of, say, a climber instead of doing the climbing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the verb, right? The climb, don't be a climber. And he made the analogy of, you could be a student that's sitting in the front of the class trying to take notes and looking attentive because you want to be a good student.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a professor I loved, and I was literally doing that. I wanted to show him I was a good student, but what does it mean to be a good student? That could have been me taking notes, not taking notes, but the goal was to really be there, and it just got me. And so, you know, when I it really reminded me, because yeah, it's not about, it's not what you look like, it's what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the thing itself. But I still I just want to get into the nitty gritty on that of how do you put yourself in how do you put yourself in that mode? Like do you meditate before getting on? Like what is the is it reliable for you to get into this state? Is it something you've just finally tapped into? Just I don't know, man. I want to do it too.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it's reliable to a degree, but it's not it's weird because it's not something you can force to happen. It's not something you can try harder to make happen. That's the thing. I mean, that's what we don't get taught. And like what you said with the example of the professor telling you that, I think that's really fitting with just the general education system that we have here, where we are told to look like we're paying attention. Like if I'm in class and I'm younger and I'm playing with something while listening, I get told to like sit up straight and look like I'm paying attention. And that really enforces the narrative that that's how you pay attention is by looking like you're paying attention. And you're not. Like that's not what it means. And I think, yeah, it sounds like you had that moment there. You're like, oh, yeah, right. I see what's going on here. But then it's to like actually pay attention, you have to let go of the like um the part of you which is referencing yourself in your environment and going, am I looking like I'm paying attention? What's he thinking of me? What's the professor thinking about me? Like you have to let go of all of those narratives and checking in with yourself and checking in with what other people are thinking about you to really embody what you're doing. So there's not a simple answer like I don't meditate for 15 minutes and then I'm ready. It's just once you're ready, and you have to just become ready through instantaneous action, through identifying with a state of readiness. There's no transition because through like making a transition, you've added friction to the system because you're trying again to become something. It's really delicate, and you just have to be ready. And once you're ready, you're ready, and once you're not ready, you're not ready. And what I'm doing before I climb is being as in touch as I can with my readiness. And once I'm ready, I know I'm ready. And if you have an inclination that you need to listen to a certain song or put on a certain t-shirt or wait an extra 5 minutes, you have to really honor that inclination because that is the readiness. It is like the submitting yourself to the process and not forcing a narrative on it.
Yeah, I knew you weren't. I knew there's no shortcut. I mean, it's fun to push people into these things or into you explaining some of these things, even though I know that there's no pill or mantra
Yeah.
you could just because it's going to be unique for every person, but it's special, you know?
It's special and it's also funny the idea that we need a shortcut because what I'm trying to say in so many words is just don't try as hard. Like that's what it comes down. I'm not saying this process for me is like I do a bunch of really difficult things. It's incredibly easy. It's so easy that it's almost impossible to do. It's like ridiculously easy. It's just being in the moment, which you can't help doing anyway.
Well, maybe the reason why trying hard doesn't work is because if you're really present and you have no attachment to the outcome, then either your body and brain are ready to do that climb or they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter how hard you try, it's just that's everything about you knows it's not the right time. It makes me think of I was trying this high ball and it had a hard first move and I kept slipping off it. And I wouldn't say the move was hard. The move was hard, but it wasn't hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I just knew all I could think about was the scary part at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I did the climb, I did that first move easily. Everything was beautiful and
Mm-hmm.
easy. And yeah, maybe the whole point of why I was slipping was like I wasn't ready, and
Yeah.
so I couldn't tap into that ease.
Yes, exactly. I would say that's a great example of you sabotaging yourself and probably getting frustrated with yourself for not doing that first move, having some like, oh, I just need to, right, I'm gonna focus and I'm gonna do this move. But there's a deeper part of you which is always gonna win. It's always gonna dictate what happens. And that deeper part of you is saying, like, we're not ready for this. And I think a lot of people aren't in touch with that deeper part and maybe have found ways to override it and can, through technical ability, get through the first move and then hurt themselves because they're not ready for the top, but they get themselves in situations where they aren't listening to their body or whatever you want to call it, and like you get in deep shit.
Yeah, I always struggle with all of this because, Hamish, I like trying really hard. It's something that I value about it. And I know we're not saying that you don't try hard because when I watch that video of you on No One Mourns the Wicked, like the there's an aggression there. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like I mean, it's like this thing, it may feel easy when you're running from the bear because
Mm-hmm.
you're running for your life, but that doesn't mean it's physically easy.
Mm-hmm.
But I do enjoy this, like, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? When you really bear down and maybe, yeah, maybe it's that idea of comfort versus discomfort, but I just, I always have trouble with the idea that I just need to kind of accept when it's time versus like kind of be the one who forces my way through the first move and then gets messed up at the top. Did you ever have a switch between, did you ever used to be like that?
Oh, yeah, and I still am on a lot of days. Like I don't want to kid people into thinking this is something that I can do like all the time. Like I have more bad days than good days, I would say, where I like get to the boulder and I'm in a mood or like I have a low pain tolerance because I've not slept well enough, and that really like affects how I'm able to enter that state. Um, and I also appreciate what you're saying about like wanting to try hard or liking that feeling of physical effort. And the physical effort is still very much there, like as you can see in the video. Like it's kind of hard to watch, but I'm doing a lot of power screaming, you know? Like
That's great, dude.
like I'm pushing myself physically really hard and mentally really hard, but that doesn't mean it's difficult. I think that's difficulty is just quite a misguided concept. Like it's not a fundamental part of what we're doing. Like I think discomfort and difficulty and effort are all very different things. Like difficulty doesn't really have a place in this story.
All right, dude, this just begs the question for us to talk about grades
Yeah.
because, like, so uh, you're like, Josh, it felt very easy when I did Megatron or No One Mourns the Wicked or any of the other great sends. And so if it feels easy, then how do you grade things or how do you deal with, the number or assigning the number? I don't even know if you chose to comment on, the grades of the things you did, but just how do we understand difficulty then?
Yeah. Well, I haven't commented on it because I think grades are so misunderstood that to comment on it is just going to add fuel to the fire. Even if what I'm saying is constructive, like to say an Instagram post being like, I think it's V17 still, even though I did it in this, like, I think that's not going to help anybody's understanding of what grades really mean. And again, like with difficulty, grades are a reflection of difficulty. I think we can say that. Difficulty, we don't really understand. I mean, difficulty on is a reflection of, like Newtonian mechanics, like it's the angles and friction and gravity, and that's a reflection of something else deeper, like, and that's a reflection of, like overcoming entropy, and that's a reflection of like time itself, and how do we actually go up that chain to like such a abstract concept like grades and take them as seriously as we do. I really like thinking about grades as analogous to money and the economy, and like how, well, a capitalist economy, more importantly, like how grades are something that we have assigned value to, but they are tokens of something deeper, and they're like driven by a community and by this kind of collective illusion that we have placed on them to hold a certain value. But there's nothing intrinsic about a dollar or a V16 or whatever that like really is at the core of anything. It's like a shadow of something much, much deeper, of a relationship between labor and effort, calorific output. There are just so many factors that go into it, that to have these really rigid black and white discussions of a V13 plus a V15 equals a V17, like we have no idea where that system really emerges from, other than like by analogy to a greater system that we live in, like living in a capitalist economy. And I feel like grades would not have developed in the same way without that system. Like it's such a fascinating discussion to me, because it just doesn't make sense fundamentally to ask someone to describe what a grade means. You can just play devil's advocate forever, and it just, there's never a solid answer to it.
You really can, because as I hear you explaining it, like, well, it is this abstract concept because it's not inherent to the rock. But then if we just say if it's not inherent to the rock, it's just a subjective experience. But then when you have these successes and subjectively they felt easy, then how do we say that it's difficult to a certain level without kind of pointing towards maybe an objective comparison between these other boulders? And it's a little bit of a round and round.
It is. It's a
Yeah.
strange loop. I think a fun way of looking at it is imagining, because this is going to be fun. Imagining you perform at your like maximum peak performance in every single moment from now onwards. In everything that you do,
Awesome.
you exactly
Thank you.
you reach your optimal potential in everything, in climbing, in relationships, and whatever you want, you are not the problem in it. So the outcome of you going climbing is just the relationship between your peak performance, your potential, and the like mechanics of the world. Like,
Hmm.
then how do, in that world, how degrades emerge? I feel like that is just such an interesting way of thinking about it. If you take yourself out of the equation by making your climbing perfect, like how does that change the way that you see the system?
Well, this is always my issue with, in some ways, even talking about beta and climbing, is that physically we're all shaped different. And even if we were shaped the same, we have different strengths in different areas. And then depending on the conditions of that moment,
Mm-hmm.
like you may stick to a certain spot, which means now you need to drop your knee a tiny little bit more compared to last time. And it just gets so complex that I'm not sure that we even like, because sorry, the reason why I'm saying this is because then I start thinking, well, let's look at the physics and the rock behind it and our
Mm-hmm.
relationship to there. But then it becomes something very specific and unique.
Mm-hmm.
And each person then has their own grading scale
Mm-hmm.
almost, right? It's kind of, so,
Exactly.
uh, okay, Hamish, you've been seeking out the hardest boulders in the world though.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because I want to figure out what's like the actual limits. I feel like in my approach of trying to see where I'm limiting myself. I want to figure out what the actual limits are and if they actually exist, and if I can just keep pushing this. I just see it as a personal challenge. Like, how deep can I go into this vein of thought in reducing the friction in a system and essentially making myself that perfect version of like climber, like very ambitious. Like I know that's not very realistic, but I want to see how far a person can go when not making any excuses on their own behalf, when not talking themselves out of doing something which is seen as really difficult. And I just want to show people that they are limiting themselves. In climbing, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's not changing that much, but in anything, whatever you struggle with, like that's the message that I want to come across, is that it doesn't have to be like that. You can experience the exact same thing in a completely different way. That's what I want, and that's how I'm doing that through climbing is V17 can feel impossible on one day and effortless on another day. And I just think that's incredible. Like that as a message itself is it's kind of like I can't really say much more with words. I feel like at some point you have to demonstrate it, and the way that I'm gonna do that, just because of what I'm trained in, is gonna be in climbing. But if it was in something else, then that would also be totally fine with me. But I'm pretty glad it's climbing because I like spending time outside and it's fun and I get a lot out of it. But it's about the message that what you thought was extremely unlikely, you were making extremely unlikely by thinking it. So,
So that pursuit of being the perfect climber is removing all frictions between you and that rock or that performance. It's just seeing what you're really capable of actually. And when it's funny because when I say you, then it becomes like the part that disappears. It's like your instantiated physicality in that moment. And it makes me think of Ethan Salvo's quote on, I think it was when you posted about Megatron on Instagram. It was something like, "Watch out when Hamish goes Invisible Man," and you had a picture of a invisible, transparent man in a meadow. Is that what you were trying to kind of capture with that little picture?
yeah, yeah. So that was a painting that I'd seen years and years ago that I hadn't thought about. And then whilst I was trying Megatron, like during those like 5 days of trying it, that like was occurring in my mind a lot. Like I was trying to, it took me a while to find it once I was like trying to crystallize that into well, what it actually was. Because like there's this painting of an invisible man in a field, and I can't remember who it's by. Um, but that was a really important part of that process because I figured a lot of stuff out through that process on Megatron. And that was just an image that kept coming back to me was that translucent man in a field. It's titled The Poet, and I just think it's incredible. Like, yeah, I think Ethan hit the nail on the head. It's letting the world move through you. It's not being a source of friction in the system. The way I was thinking about it at the time on Megatron was, or a way was even just in energy expenditure. You want as much energy as you can if you're going to do this really high physical output thing. So it was a way of saving energy is to make myself metaphorically invisible, to allow the world to just move through me, to not resist things that are coming my way, regardless of whether I try and resist them or not. They're still coming. It was just to allow things to unfold and things to happen, and in doing so, to save an immense amount of energy that I could put towards physical output.
Yeah, just couldn't help but crack up at that comment by Ethan. And then it all makes sense hearing you talk through it. So I'm glad that I had tapped into it as well. So you've been repeating these climbs and you're finding out what you're, I don't know if I want to say you're finding out what you're capable of. You were capable of doing these climbs. That's how it all lined up. Um, what does the future look like for you then? Do you go into first ascents? Is it back to competitions? Are you doing Salt Lake City next week?
Yeah, I'm doing a few World Cups this
Okay.
year, but uh yeah, I don't know.
You got to tell me you're laughing about what's you had, because when we last spoke you had a wonderful Olympic showing, and I got to tell you, man, that last pod we did, it was really cool because I had watched you on TV and I was like, dude, there's something about Hamish and the performance. I don't know. It's just, it speaks to me. And then I found out why. Uh, and you had a blast there, but you
Mhm.
kind of had said, I may compete, but I kind of want to make sure I enjoy it. And so you've been climbing mainly outdoors. You're going to dabble in the World Cups. Just, you're chuckling. Tell me more about competing.
I just don't really know how to think about it. Coming out here, I was like, right, I'm gonna climb outside, and then I'm gonna go to Salt Lake like a month before the World Cup and start climbing indoors. Just laughing because that's not happened. Uh, so I just don't know what's gonna happen. I feel like I could either perform incredibly well. I feel like that's a possibility. I mean, I'm the strongest I've ever been. I'm the most accurate I've ever been. I'm probably the most coordinated I've ever been. But I've also like done like 3 jumps in the last month, and that's like all they set nowadays. So I'm laughing because I just have no idea what to expect. I wouldn't be surprised if I like podium or bomb, you know. It's a quite a wide range of possibility that I'm open to. Well, that's it's just funny because that's not usually how it is. It's like going into comps in the past and be like, right, I'm performing really well. Like the worst I could do is like maybe like 30th, like but maybe I can make the final. And it's really like a manic, like stressful thing of self-reference of this is how good I am, this is how good everybody else is. I hope they set in this style. Well, I just don't feel that nearly as much now. And this is nice.
Then
Like
you'll have fun, man.
yeah, I will.
Uh,
And I'm actually looking forward to the social side of it as well, which in the past has always been like a stressor because you're there and you're trying to like, well, for me, trying to like compete. And sometimes it's just like overwhelming having so many people around you during that. It's like really intense. But I'm just like, it's gonna be nice to see people, especially all the Brits I haven't seen in like 2.5 months.
Gotta tell you, the Brits have been crushing these past couple of years. You
Yes.
guys are doing extremely well in all disciplines of climbing, competitions. Well, I'm happy that you didn't go to Salt Lake City and just train for a month. I think the climbing world is happy where, yeah, you've had quite a run, and I encourage your sponsors to make you an Invisible Man shirt. I
Yes.
would like to see. I don't. What was that look? Is it just a translucent? Is it a paper
Oh.
plastic bag? No, I think they should get the rights to that little man in the meadow picture, and then
Mm-hmm.
that can
That would be
be,
incredible. Yeah.
yeah.
I did wear a somewhat see-through button-up shirt for No Mourns the Wicked, which was like in part I was aware. I liked the feel of it and the thought of it being a kind of nod to that mindset I was trying to enter.
Quick break to tell you about today's sponsor. And just a reminder, I only partner with companies that are run by climbers. Today's partner is Mad Rock Climbing. Mad Rock is always at the cutting edge of climbing. They're known for innovation, and that's because they're climbers who keep pushing the limits of what is possible in gear technology. Like the drones. Everyone knows you have to have a pair of drones in your quiver because sometimes that heel makes it almost feel like cheating. Almost. If you want to hear more about the latest innovations going on there and what's coming next, be sure to check out episode number 147 with their CEO Kenny Suh. It's a total banger. The other thing that drives Madrock is an ethos that climbing is for everybody. And that means making the best gear affordable. That's why Madrock has promised to keep their prices the same through at least the summer despite the turmoil that tariffs have brought to the industry. They're not going to lower quality, reduce staff for their pay, or cut corners in any way. They're just going to take the hit so you don't have to. Like their founder Young Chu said, making good gear isn't hard. Making it affordable, that's the challenge. Go check them out now at madrock.com. Okay, back to the pod. So, in these past 6 months since we last chatted, you've spent a bunch of time in Squamish, and I know you've made headlines for Megatron and No One Mourns the Wicked. But dude, you had a good Squamish season. The Singularity is no joke, and I blanking on the name of that 14 you flashed, but there was a ton of other climbs you did. And something that I was curious about is one of the topics you brought up that you wanted to talk about was breaking plateaus. And when we last spoke, it seemed like going to the Olympics, you had had this big breakthrough.
Mhm.
And I just encourage people to listen to the episode, one of my favorites. And I'm wondering, like, have you been breaking through new plateaus? Like, maybe actually, what is a plateau? How do you know if you're at a plateau?
It's a good question. Because often you don't. I think often it feels like you're making progress, but you're making progress in areas which are not holding you back. I think you know you're in a plateau when you can identify honestly what is holding you back, and that's usually not finger strength, I would say, or anything in that vein. Sometimes it is, maybe for some people it like really is, but there's always gonna be work to be done internally. Um, so I think you can identify you're in a plateau through metrics when like you've been at the same grade or position in a comp like that's what metrics are kind of useful for, is like holding that collective illusion in order to see if like you are making change relative to other people. And if you're not, then you can like have a look at yourself and be like, okay, what is actually missing right now? But I just within climbing, I don't like to compartmentalize climbing and life anymore like I used to. Like all of this stuff I've been speaking about can be applied to anything, you know. And I just don't subscribe to the view that you need a sports psychology and a general psychology. Like I've always been resistant to that, and I still am. I just don't think that that's how it works. Or that's not how I want to live my life. I don't want to manipulate myself into being good at something. That just doesn't feel right to me. So for breaking plateaus, I think it's really important to first like be honest with yourself, like really brutally honest, like what is holding me back right now. Um, and the toughest thing is gonna be if it's something internal, some like mindset shift that needs to happen. That's what people don't like doing. I think that's why I've had some flack for my like way of posting is on like speaking about like what has allowed me to reach my potential, because it's easy to go and find a coach and train and get really strong, and it's really not, and everyone knows it's really not easy to overcome stuff that you've struggled with and like mindsets that are holding you back. Like people don't like hearing that that's maybe the way forward.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's really difficult and frustrating, and people know that. Because there's no one who isn't constantly trying to like better themselves. Oh, I think I mean maybe they exist, but I think most people like have things about themselves that they're not like wanting, like whatever that is, over being overly competitive or jealous or angry or prone to all sorts of different things. Like everyone knows how hard it is to rewrite narratives. Um, and I think people just don't like hearing that that's maybe something which is necessary, and you can't just work your way around that. Like you have to actually confront that stuff at some point.
So it seemed like you had broken through a plateau upon arriving in Paris, yeah.
Paris.
Let's mix them up sometimes. Paris for the Olympics. You have wonderful performance, but also a joyful performance. Um, have you broken through other plateaus since then?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones has been in taking a step away from competing. Um, because competition for me has been quite limiting in the fact that I'm always checking in on how good I am compared to other people, like constantly. In like, am I okay to do this because this is going to be the consequence? And I think the biggest plateau that I've broken through, which has helped me, is doing it my own way and not needing to subscribe to a known way of becoming good. Like I've yeah, I've just been if I need to take 5 rest days in a row or 10 rest days in a row, I can do that now. And it's not this massive stress. Um, and if I climb like for like 6 hours a day for like 5 days in a row and I feel messed up afterwards, if that felt right, then that's okay as well. Like I just have a much more faith in my own system somewhere in me to know what's going on. That's been the biggest plateau is like actually leaning into that, learning to just take that leap.
That seems hard won though. Like you trained a lot as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
You definitely put in the hours and you competed and you've climbed outdoor. Like you have a lot of experience. When when do you think when do you think it was appropriate for you to shift into trusting yourself versus perhaps trusting a coach? And you can see how this applies to others is it's like, if you're 5 years old and you've, only climbed once, maybe you don't know all the secrets. Like when should you trust your instincts and when should you look to others?
Well, I don't think like I'm not saying I've stopped learning from other people. Like that's still a part of it, but I'm better at knowing just when to trust myself and when to like trust the science, I guess.
Well, because we were talking, I think right before we clicked record was how there's studies about all sorts of things, but how many studies are there about how you go from good to great? How do
Mm-hmm.
you really the science may always be behind when we're talking about the elite, and I would venture to say that you shouldn't read a paper on how to go from number two to number one, or maybe even more fittingly, number one to
Mm-hmm.
legend, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah, no, that's there's just not enough evidence for that anywhere. Like if you have a sample size of one, it is not a paper to write. Like anything scientific is not going to be tailored to you or at the cutting edge. And obviously, there are some case like medical science or whatever where like I'm not trying to have the greatest liver out of all humans, you know? Um, like then I just want to have a normal functioning liver. Like that's all I care about. But in like trying to really find your potential, then I think you do at some point you do have to do it alone and find your own way through it. And for me that still involves having a coach and having people that I train with and people that I learn from. But I still now something I struggle with that I've been trying to get better at is trusting the science more. Like for resting, I'm really bad at resting between attempts. Like there were goes on Megatron where I like would drop like the last move and I'd just feel so ready 5 minutes later. Like not necessarily physically because I wasn't in touch with that then, which was I think something that I'm working on. But mentally I was like, right, I'm just gonna go again. And I would go again 5 minutes later or less even, and I'd get to the last move again. And like then I learn a lot of stuff from that process about like, oh no, you do actually have to sometimes just trust the science of like you should rest this amount of time. And I hate doing that because I don't have feedback on it. So now I'm trying to move into a system where I'm not only really in touch with what's going on in my mind, but I'm also really in touch with what's going on in my body. And I'm trying to feel more accurately and to a final resolution when I am actually recovered, when I'm actually ready to go. And like, cause I just don't want to trust stuff without having a feeling for it. Like, maybe that's something that in a few weeks or a few months or years, I'll be look back on and be like, oh, that was naive. But for right now, it just, I want to be let in on that feeling.
What else did you learn during the Megatron process?
Uh, there was, there was definitely a moment when I was gonna go up to it on day, I'd had 4 sessions on it, and I was gonna go up for my fifth session, and it had just been snowing, and it might have still been wet, but I like wanted to go up anyway because I was really antsy to go. And I ran into Brooke Rabbitoo at the like movement boulder gym, and I was like warming up to go, like trying to decide if I was ready for it. And I'd like climbed the last few days, and I was still, I like I shouldn't have gone, and she could tell because like yeah, she could just tell. And she said something to me about like learning to enjoy that hunger of like being like ready to go. I was like, oh yeah, like that can actually just be a positive feeling. That was a really important thing. It's like learning to enjoy the like impatience almost. Like feeling impatience as positive, fun, exciting experience that you almost don't want to rush your impatience, which is again a strange paradox and loop within this whole conversation. But that was a big thing. It was like I just knew it was right, and yet I was going to push myself to just be like, right, I'm gonna make this happen today. And then I was like, oh, or I could just like enjoy the fact that I'm really antsy to go and do it, and that's also okay. Like, and then yeah, I went up 2 days later when it was definitely dry and I was definitely rested and like did it, and it was just great. Like I knew that that was an important part of it.
That's fascinating. I've never heard that idea of enjoying the psych and the impatience and not trying to force it. It's really congruent with what we were talking about, where when it's easy because it is ready and you can't force it. And
Yeah.
interesting. Go, Brooke. I know that you've been I mean, okay, so you said you still have a coach, and clearly you still learn from those around you. Yeah, what does it look like to be coached when you're, one of the best in the world? Like, what does your coach say to you, and what are you learning from your friends when you're out trying these problems? Like, I know you credited Noah Wheeler with giving you a lot of help on help being he was sharing beta and probably being your bud.
Hmm.
But yeah, like what do you learn from Noah in those things? What do you learn from your coach when really you're also at the top of your game?
Yeah. Well, I think for me, it's become way less technical and way more about surrounding myself with people whose mindsets and approach I can learn from. Like hanging out with Noah that day was incredible for all the like technical advice that he gave me of like place your foot here, do this, do this, do this. But the thing like that actually helped the most, and you can hear it on the video, when I did define gravity first, and then when I did the low, was like while I was on the wall, he has a very good way of being like, "You've got this," like, but he means it. It's not like sometimes you hear people like, "Yeah, come on, looking good," and it doesn't resonate because you can hear like some fluctuations in their voice and some doubt, or you even just read that in. But with him, he was like, when I placed my heel well, he was like, heel's good. Like, placed it well. Like, you're gonna do the move. Like, that was like just hearing the way that he like spoke with confidence about how I was climbing. Um, that was really helpful. Like, it's not like every time I can actually hear the person who's filming or spotting or whatever, but with him, it was like he just knows, like he's climbed long enough, he's done two V17s himself, like he could just see when it was right, and he like expressed that, and that was really important for me in doing that, in not like collapsing that sacred space of awareness that I'd built up when I like almost done it, and I could still like bottle the last move. Um, so stuff like that is really helpful. Just surrounding yourself with people who build you up and you just learn from by being around them. They don't have to be great climbers or, technically gifted or add stuff in that way because I just feel like at this level, what I'm learning is so tailored to my body and my physiology that it's going to be quite rare, and it still happens a lot, but it's happens way less than like when I do it to myself that people say, "Oh, you could try doing this. Like you could if you just put your foot there, you'll do the move." Like that stuff for the most part, I've got. Like I'm good at that. What I need for like um progression and learning from others is to be inspired, is to see them performing at their best and finding their own path to find the potential and to learn from that and to just be inspired and um it's just yeah so much. It's like being around nice people, having good interactions with people at the coffee shop, all of that stuff like just feeds into uh this place where you feel good enough and you feel allowed to be vulnerable. And when you're allowed to be vulnerable, you find your own way through it.
It's just the trick to climbing V17 is the vibes. You're just like
It
gotta
is,
have those vibes.
but but it is like I think so many people physically could climb at that level. Like hundreds could climb V17 like in a few sessions
I'm
physically.
I was always struck by this video that Carlo Traversi did years ago. I think it was called Heritage. Said something along the lines of it's not just about being able to do the climb, it's about doing the climb. It's and that again is back to all of it. But what I was going to ask is a lot of our talk is about kind of tapping into yourself, showing up in that moment, and it's very it sounds very first person oriented, but I am wondering, like, do you get psyched when you see Noah do a move and you didn't do it? Like, something I like about climbing is that it's this solo pursuit that can be helped by your buddies, and you can be psyched for your buddies, and you can also feed off them and be competitive
Mm-hmm.
in this way that, like, I want to do the boulder before my buddy, not because I'm trying to be mean. It's just, I don't know. It like brings out something in me that I think, I hope they feel the same way.
Yes.
I'm not trying to one up them. I'm just trying to push myself to be the best I can be. Do you still feel that kind of thing as
Yes.
well?
For the first time ever, I feel like very comfortable to be beaten and like it isn't a threat, which is great. Like
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I've climbed with Noah enough here that he has done a bunch of moves that I can't do, and that's like it's sick. Like that's inspiring to me because I'm pretty happy with where I'm at the moment. And it's it's always been this thing for me because I think because I'm so naturally competitive and I hate losing so much, just as like a natural baseline, 10-year-old Hamish having a tantrum because he's lost at something like that. I know how that feels. It's more of an issue for me to allow myself to put other people in that situation because I project my own feelings, especially childhood feelings, onto them. Like I don't want to induce those feelings in someone else. So I think I have for my whole life kind of under the surface had a problem with not wanting to beat people and yet needing to beat people for my own sake. But then having enough empathy to like understand that that's also like potentially if I'm winning, it means someone else isn't. And that's something which for like at Mourns, like I think I was having to enter that space again because that was another narrative I was having to override is being okay with being the center of attention and like doing something which was really impressive and cool and like being okay with it being really impressive and cool and not needing to like dampen myself.
Well, because if you recognize the what if in the positive way, it still posits that negative what if. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
that's it's interesting because the thing if I want to push back exactly, but something I got to point out, man, is being okay with being beaten is a lot easier when you have made finals in the Olympics. Or I'm going to argue that it seems from my plebeian perspective that it's easier when you've climbed multiple of the hardest grade the world has given, been in the Olympics. 10-year-old Hamish hadn't done that yet.
Hmm.
And so, is this something that you think is a state that one should try to seek out, even if they haven't achieve things that they are personally validating, like do you see what I mean there?
Yeah, totally. No, I see it's an achievement as a suit of armor that I no doubt have developed through hating being beaten and through the insecurity of not feeling like I have a metric that says I'm the best. Like I have absolutely no doubt that that feeling has pushed me or propelled me to like seek out achievement and becoming like that's a part of it. Like if I am truly happy with myself and zen and meditative, I don't need to go climbing. You know what I mean? Like I don't need to well, I don't need to push my limits or I don't need to share about it. Um, like I'm aware that some of the motivating factor is this the human competitiveness. Uh, and that's okay. Like I'm not trying to completely strip that away from myself all at once, but I am slowly trying to peel that back, which has the ironic and paradoxical effect of making you achieve greater things.
Yeah, something that I was thinking about this idea of the whole what if, and I still love that when you first talked about the friction that can get in the way, you actually went to the positive side of things. And I really thought it was going to be, what if I fall? What if my friend see me fall, or whatever the case may be? And it was, what if I succeed? And it's funny because for so many of us, it's such low stakes and it gets so in the way. But, you know, dude, you went out into finals in the Olympics. You just, did some of the hardest boulders in the world. And it almost, it, it strikes me as being even more difficult to push away what if when those are life-changing performances, man. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to put
Hmm.
extra pressure on you for the next one, but they are, dude. Like, it's incredible, and like it almost seems like you have to ratchet up your ability to push them away, or sorry, not to push them away, but to push away the what ifs. Like
Yeah.
it's ever escalating.
Yes. Yes. I feel like that's well said. And I don't expect that that's gonna stop. Like the only thing that stops it escalating is me not caring that it's escalating or not feeling that pressure. Because yeah, a big part of the what if is the attention. Like I don't obviously a part of me likes attention when it's positive because I'm seeking it out by sharing about the fact that I'm doing stuff. But there's also a part of me that doesn't like attention because it's just like the fear of um even in like a positive light, like doing something difficult, there's always a fear of negative attention. And like I think for the first time ever with like these achievements, because they're big enough, I've like had negative attention around that, which has been really, I mean, tough at first, like for the first instance. But then I realized that most of that toughness is disappointment because I do actually feel good enough in myself and grounded enough to have a voice at the moment. Like I think everybody does. I think everybody has a right to share however they want. Um, but I just felt disappointed in the climbing world a little bit.
You've made it, Hamish. People hate you. You've made it. Why do you think people respond negatively towards you sharing something authentic, towards you, sharing more of the spiritual side of climbing? Why do you think people take to the interwebs and type out mean messages?
Yeah.
Mean.
I think I think some of it is what we spoke about before with the threat of being like, oh, if I'm gonna achieve what I want, I'm gonna actually have to look at myself and confront myself. I think that's a big part of it, is that that's an intimidating thing for someone to realize, is that people aren't just good because they're genetically gifted or they I mean, obviously I don't want to like I've been fortunate with like where I was born and like the opportunities I've had and my body type for climbing. Like yeah, there are great things there, but like most of the like upper limit achievement has been through reflection, and people don't like that. Uh, and then I think people use climb. I spoke to Ethan about this actually, and he kind of had the insight that people use climbing as a way to punish themselves a bit, which I hadn't really thought about, but I just see it. Like now it makes a lot of sense. Like it's almost not supposed to be spiritual or fun or like just a good easy time. Like at the upper limit, it's supposed to have suffering and it's supposed to have pain and heartbreak, and it's good because you get the relief when you do it that you don't have to do it again. And that's like been a very different thing to what I've been sharing. Is it's just been like a interesting learning curve, and like stuff can go well without it being this masochistic thing.
Yeah, I remember talking to a buddy of mine who's actually does coaching for CEOs and really amazing people are really successful.
Hmm.
And he pointed out that I often associate that kind of achievement with masochism, with basically, I call it flogging
Yes.
myself. And he just asked me really simply, it's like, why do you think excellence has to be combined with suffering? And my first reaction was like, of course. And I was like, wait, there's no real direct link there. And so that's fascinating to hear. But I also think that something that maybe people miss when I see the pushback is that I I don't think they really understand what excellence takes. And it's like this idea that it is just genetics, where I always say being strong is necessary but not sufficient.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, when you and Noah and just pick your litter of you guys all climb V17, you guys are strong, so of course it's necessary. But I believe that we could find quite a few people that also have the same potential. So again, it's necessary but not sufficient. I think people don't like to hear that. I think they don't recognize that excellence is more than sets and reps.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is interesting because what the message is that you can succeed more by suffering less. And it's so fascinating how unwilling people are to giving up their suffering. Me too. I've like made some good progress in climbing, but I still have the rest of my like life that like I mean everybody really, we will sacrifice just about anything for success apart from suffering. It's so weird. I don't understand that at all. Yeah, like yeah, maybe one day I'll have some insight on that, but for now it's just confusing.
I got nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
uh, I gotta ask you about when I last spoke to you, you were kind of, again, kind of recouping from the Olympics, enjoying yourself. Not to say you aren't enjoying yourself now. You're hanging out in Squamish, you have some great successes, and then it seems like you went to Megatron. And Megatron is well known to be quite difficult. It's I'll just leave it at that. Why did you decide that the next step for you was to go test yourself against that rock? What was the thought process there? Because there's a lot of rocks in the world, and although you were having amazing success in Squamish, I don't want to say I don't want to diminish it whatsoever. Megatron was a big another in my outward view another a big step.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah, when I went, I'd only done one V15 and one V16. Now I've done more V17s than V15s or 16s, so that's funny.
That is funny,
Um,
man.
but yeah, I just felt ready. I started to just see it as a rock, and the grade lost a lot of meaning to me, apart from it being a symbol of I'm gonna have to dig deep on this. It was like I wanted to see what I was made of. I didn't tell many people I was gonna go and try it, or like I didn't share anything about it until I'd done it. I just didn't want any extra pressure or expectation because I wanted it to be about me figuring out if I had it in me to do. And the first session, like when I went up there, like it seemed really, really hard, and the second session it still seemed really, really hard. And I had some breakthroughs on the third session, and then I started linking. And then it was like, oh, I'm gonna do this in one of the next sessions. But the decision to actually go to that boulder came quite late. Like I was already in the US. Quinn and I were gonna do something before going to Salt Lake, but we hadn't like actually spoken about where we were gonna go. We were waiting in Squamish for good weather. That never came, so we didn't actually spend much time there. I just kind of board climbed around Seattle for a while, which was good fun.
Mhm.
Um, and then I said to her that I was like, yeah, I'd like to go to Megatron if you want to come to Colorado. And it worked out that that was just fine, and she had friends here that she wanted to see, and we just came here because it's something to do. You got to pick something. It didn't have to be Megatron. Like I've always liked the look of the boulder, famously difficult, which is cool. It looked like it was in my style, like it allowed for creativity, which I really like, and it just was great. Yeah, I don't know, just seemed right. It just seemed right.
How do you think you would be if you had been 5 sessions deep and it still seemed impossible to you?
Uh, I think I would have struggled with that. I've not learned that lesson yet very well. I've never projected anything for longer than 5 days, and I think I would struggle with that currently. Um, but there's no real way to get better at that other than to do it, which I will at some point. I can see that in my future because I'd like to climb something harder than uh Megatron, and that would obviously, well, not obviously, but that would likely take more than 5 days if it's really at like my physical limit and mental limit. But I just know it's a completely different skill. Like I have so much respect for people who spend years and years and years trying something and then do it. Like that's incredible. I think in the moment that they decide it's okay for them to break that cycle and do it, like that's just the most powerful thing ever. Like for me, it sounds this is gonna sound absolutely ridiculous, but it's easier to do it quick, and that's why I do it quick. And I know I don't want to like that. I understand that that's really ridiculous, but that's how I look at it. Is like with Megatron and Mourns and other boulders, like my mentality is it's just easier. It takes less effort to like pool all of my energy that I have in this moment into this one attempt and do it. It's just easier and better and more fun for me to do that rather than have this like long drawn out process. Like I don't really want that right now. If that is like something which ends up happening, like cool, I'll deal with it then. But for now, like that just doesn't sound like I'd enjoy it. Like 5 days was like a good amount of intensity of enjoying the impatience. But anything longer than that, I think I'd have to um just learn some new lessons, figure out some shit.
You said that Megatron looked like your style, and I've never been there. Um, I know a little bit about some of the stuff you did in Squamish. I have watched videos of Noah Mourns the Wicked. What is your style?
Uh,
Those are all very different, you know?
they are, yeah. I think I like having options. That's the biggest thing, is I like it when, okay, take Burden of Dreams, for example, which I've never been to. Maybe I would like it as well. But like when you think about that boulder, you think about how easy it is to set. Like you get replicas set. There's like 5 holds, and those are the holds you have to use. And I struggle with that, I think, mentally. Like I just don't enjoy that as much. It's the same climbing in Bishop. Like when I went, I didn't really enjoy climbing in Bishop because there were the holds and you used them and that was it. Whereas on all of these climbs, there are options. I mean, No One Mourns the Wicked less so, but that fit my morphology really well, so that kind of mattered less. Um, but everything else that I've done, I felt like there are even if the options are really subtle, like there are, it makes a big difference if you like move your hand one crystal over. Or on like Megatron, like I used a completely different sequence to Sean for the start.
Hmm.
Like I didn't use one hold that he used, and for the top I used a completely different sequence as well. So I just like that, like figuring out how to make my body interact with the rock in the best way that fits me.
You also said that you like the look of the boulder, but I feel like a lot of what we've been talking about is really finding out what you're capable of and what you're made of, and that you're clearly really invested in the mental side of things. Do you care about lines that much, or beauty or aesthetics in rock? Do you have a take on that, or are you, is it more of a personal journey?
Yeah, more of a personal journey. Like to a degree. I mean, there's like climbing out holes that I'm not so keen on. But for me, it's more about how it feels. Like I don't like uncomfortable holds just because it's painful and uncomfortable. I don't like holds that like are really sharp and get your skin. Like I tried hypno out here a bit, and I just find it frustrating when you have like you have to be really tactical. It's like you have a go, you have to fan your hands for however long, and then have another go, and then you've had 3 goes and your skin's shredded, and I just don't find that as fun. For me, it's more about like I really like climbing in my style, and I realized that that's absolutely fine. I can just climb in my style forever and push my limits in my style. I don't like no one's gonna make me do lucid dreaming unless I want to, which is fine with me. Like I kind of want to just do stuff that my body reacts well to and I find fun and interesting, and I think it's good for me to accept that I don't have to be the best in everything. I can just like I'm kind of fine just being the best at like something, or like trying to be the best at something. Or even the best, like the best I can be is what I mean. Like sure I can make myself stronger in the like tiny crimps and whatever and go to Bishop and have a like successful trip, but that's just not what I want. And you can only live one life at a time. And for now, I like doing the more 3D, fun, dynamic stuff.
There's a lot of rocks out there. There's
Yeah,
plenty of rocks.
exactly.
So yeah, what's catching your eye now? You're really, you've really had an incredible last 6 months, man. It sounds like you're gonna go do a World Cup or two, but what's, where, what do you want to do to challenge yourself next? Are you ever gonna like tie in? Are you gonna, I mean, just how does your mind, you're on your personal journey, how do you find the next challenge for yourself?
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to climb harder boulders for now, like short term. That's where my mind is at because that's what I'm enjoying the most. The only thing that springs to mind because it's had some hype at the minute is the Sisu project
Mm.
in Finland. Just because people have been speaking about it, it's had like a resurgence and aesthetically incredible. Like geologically, it looks pretty wild. I don't know if you've seen photos of it. It's this really strange formation, and it just has some lore around it being like next level. And that's I want to see what that's like. I want to touch the holds on something that's next level. Like that's my favorite part about projecting is like getting to the boulder and touching the holds with my like approach shoes still on. Like I love that and just being like, oh, okay, like your brain is starting to connect dots and be like, I could see myself do this. And I want to get there and be like, I'm not sure if I can see myself do this. That's what I'm looking for. Because I've not had that and then done something before. Like with everything that I've uh achieved in climbing, I've like known from the get-go that is within my capabilities. Right? I want something to be like, I know this is gonna take a lot of stuff that I can't even imagine.
So I used to say this when I was stuck in the city. I would say, I want to go have a adventure. I want to have an epic.
Yeah.
Okay, so feel like we all, you get a little cooped up. You want to go do something exciting, right? And what I came to realize over the years is that what those epics meant to me is when I all of a sudden didn't want to be there anymore. Like I was like, oh, it's 3 a.m. Like you're lost in the woods, you're exhausted. Oh, you're having an epic, and it would be definitively in that I was like, I don't want to be here. And then I would somehow ache for that after, a couple of months or a couple, maybe maybe a year. And so the reason why I bring that up is it makes me wonder that when you hit this next challenge, in some ways, it has to be like, I can't do this, right? Like it's like, I cannot do this boulder.
Yes.
And then it has to be like that. That almost seems like the challenge you're seeking out. And so I'm just wondering, like, what tools do you use to bring yourself when, like, by definition, it has to be something that you're like, I can't do this. And then you do it. Like it's a weird dichotomy there.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly it, and that's exactly what I've been preaching about without actually doing yet. Is being in that situation of like this might be beyond me, and then redefining me, and then doing it. Like that's what I'm looking for, is that constant redefining of how I see myself and what I see as possible. Because it just opens up so much to go through that experience at any level, opens up your world. To be like, I thought this was impossible. By definition, this could not be done. And now I have done it. Like, what better thing can there be? Like, what better lesson can there be to learn? Because you can apply that to anything. It's like I thought it was impossible not to get moody when someone, you know, jumped the queue or whatever, or like when like someone didn't clean the dishes or whatever it is. I thought it was impossible to like not react to that. And yeah, like what if it's completely possible? And that's easier than like overcoming some other things in your life. Like you can just open up your world to be whatever you want it to be. And you can live the same life on paper, but it feels completely different. And that's just great. You just never have to stop redefining yourself and redefining what your life is. And it just keeps it interesting forever, hopefully.
I'll never forget when I first did the mandala and my girlfriend, now wife, did Funky Tut, which was a hard V3, a good one for her when she did it. I remember us driving home and we're both quiet And I just know we're both just thinking about how the world all of a sudden looks different. So these different possibilities. It makes me think of my analogy for the door, where maybe you just saw the door handle, um, and maybe this is a terrible example. It's what comes to mind. Maybe you opened up a beer bottle on the door handle, and all of a sudden, I just mean the world literally looks different to you when you go through these experiences that change what you think of as possible. The world actually looks different to you. And
Yes.
so I love that you're seeking that. And I just think that was a, a, a beautiful way to start closing out the chat we had, man. Yeah. Let me see. Is there anything I didn't cover? I mean, one of the things that I want to ask you about, because it was because of this more personal journey you go on these boulders, is I want to know what that moment was like when you pulled on to to Megatron when you did it, as well as when you finished Megatron. Just what was going through your head? What did it feel like?
Yeah. So pulling on, the feeling is it's like spinning plates. It's like you're paying attention, or like when you're cooking and you have like lots of different pans on different burners and there's stuff in the oven and you're like tending to everything at once. That's the feeling. It's like a balancing act of all these things. You're paying like pretty fine attention to like many, many different things and you're keeping everything under control, but not through like controlling it, but still it's like it's hard to describe without analogy, but I mean analogy is great. That's what it's for. It's like a mixture of that and treading water, but like you're just keeping things kind of squashed for the time being, but also not squashed. Like you're just being very accepting, very present. But I feel like saying being present misses the point for how most people interpret that. Um, and then you climb and you're doing the same while climbing. Like your attention is not um in one place. Like I'm focusing on all of the sensations I have, like physical sensations and visual sensations mainly, because those are the important ones, like what the holds feel like, and then my body will adjust itself accordingly. And visually like where the holds are and kinesthetically where my limbs are. So all of that, that's where your focus is. There's no, like I have no memory of it, but I know that's what I was doing because that's why I have no memory of it, is because that's where my attention was. And then when I like get to the top to a position where I can like relax from that quite intense state, it's like my personality rushes back into me and I feel like surprised that I'm up there. It's like I teleported almost and I don't quite know where I am. It's a really weird feeling because you know that you've just climbed it, but I've had this a few times on Megatron, on Big Z, where I genuinely don't know if I've just done it or not. And I ask. Like I ask someone at the bottom. I like or look at someone at the bottom. You can see that in the video when it'll come out, and you can see that on the singularity. Like I'm confused, and I have to look down to see what's going on. Like if I actually did it, or if I pulled on halfway. Like why I'm suddenly at the top. And then I like realize what's going on, and it's just like disbelief because I have no memory of it. Like the thing that is doing the memory wasn't there for the climbing. And it's just a bit disorienting and confusing, but at the same time, you're like, oh, I guess I did it. Like, cool. And that's kind of it. And then you top out and you kind of just have to take people's word for it. It's a really strange experience. I feel like I often don't top out in the most elegant ways because of that disbelief. It's like it happens, and I'm just like, look a little dumbfounded, and I just it's disorienting is the best way to put it.
I gotta tell you, it's fun to watch that. It's fun to watch that full, engrossing moment that you're in. I think it's why I was drawn to your Olympics performance. And I can't believe I forgot that you had done Big Z in the meantime too. I couldn't believe when you did Big Z and did it with the quickness too. I was blown away by that. Just another one to add to the box. Hamish, I asked you last time, how do you go from good to great? I will ask you again this time. I know it has only been 6 months. You could just say Invisible Man and then
Yeah,
just
that's
yeah.
basically it. Yeah, I mean, take the you out of the equation and embody greatness, and in that moment, you're great. I would say I'm definitely less attached to the you being a part of the good or the great anymore. Like when you're speaking about you, and like you can't take good or great with you to go full circle. Like if you do something good or something great, it doesn't matter. It's not a part of you. It's not going anywhere. So it's just whatever in that moment. If you're embodying greatness, which I think you are right now, looking pretty great, then like that's it. That's all you can do. And like if you feel great and you're able to do that for yourself, because no one else can do that for you. If you feel great, then that's great.
I also think that when you climb around people a lot, you see people climb V17, you see people climb V7, you see people climb V2. And when they really have that invisible man or woman moment, we all feel it and it's beautiful and it's great and then it's gone. And
Yeah,
I mean I love you love when you see your buddy do something that just takes everything out of them and it's a special moment and it seems to be something that's consistent with great performances regardless of your level. And it's fascinating to hear that it is maybe even more crucial the the closer you get to your own potential or even human potential.
yeah. I think that it's the other factors become less important because if you've climbed V16, you can probably climb V17. If you climb V17, you can probably climb V18.
Mm.
But like physically, whereas if you're climbing V3, like you can probably get stronger fingers and a worse mindset and climb V4. But that's just not the case the higher up the ladder you get. But still, the feeling of performing at your limit, I think, is pretty much identical at any level. Like just what that feels like.
That was a fascinating distinction where you could get stronger fingers, per, perform worse, and still climb V4 after V3. But that's not the case when it comes to true potential, because of course you have to have strong fingers. And so it always has to be really tapping into an excellent performance to get the most out of your body.
I would say so.
Interesting. All right, Hamish, I felt like I had a couple invisible man moments here. It's why I like doing these is that everything drops away. And although it's different than the physicality, just really being here with another person has a special quality to it that is beautiful in its own self. So thanks, man. I had a
Yeah,
blast.
me too. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like even more content, go to patreon.com/testpiece. And while you're at it, share this podcast with someone you know who would love it. And please leave us a review or rating at wherever you get your podcasts. We've also got tons of great content on YouTube and Instagram, so don't forget to like and subscribe there. Okay, see you next week.